I always believe that when you're developing something, you need some sort of basis or model to model the process on. So the model that we use for rubrics is what's called the paced decision-making process. And you'll see just now why it's called the paced, as in P-A-C-E-D. So let's have a look. When you're making any decision in life, there's certain steps that you go through. The first is you identify what the problem is. What is the issue? What do you need to decide on? Then we look at alternatives. We say, right, this is the problem. What alternatives do we have to this problem? Then we analyze the information or the criteria. And we analyze this according to the alternatives. We then evaluate the situation. So we say, right, we've got these alternatives and we've got the criteria. Let's evaluate the situation we have now with this information. And then finally, we decide on a solution. Now, if you have a look, in each of these steps, there is a letter highlighted. And that's why it's called the paced decision-making model, P-A-C-E-D. Now, in the same way, we use this model to develop a rubric because actually we're going through the same steps. We're looking at what is the problem. What do we want from the learners? What are the alternatives? What is the criteria in which we evaluate these alternatives? We then evaluate the response of the learner, and then we decide on a solution, which is then the assessment. So let's put this into practice. Now, if you were to put it into a grid, it would look something like this. And I'm going to take you through each of these stages so that you can see how the paced decision-making model lends itself to a rubric structure. So let's imagine we're going on a holiday. We've now got to decide where we're going to go and what are we going to do. So what is the decision to be made? Well, the decision is to go on a holiday. So now we need to do a number of things. We need to decide where and what we're going to, where we're going to go and what we're going to do. So the first thing is, let's look at our criteria. Well, we're a teacher, or we're teachers, we don't have much money, so we want value for money. Wherever we decide to go, there must be value for money. We also need it to be relaxing. We're not going to go on a holiday that's not relaxing. We're then also a little bit concerned about distance. Because we've got children, we don't want to drive for a long way, or if we have to fly to a distant destination. So distance is a priority for us. And then, of course, as I mentioned, because you've got kids, you want a kid-friendly place. So those are our criteria. These are the aspects that you're going to use to evaluate your alternatives. So what are the alternatives? Well, in this case, I've chosen two. The one is to go river rafting on the Orange River. The other is to hire a guest house in the Karoo on a farm. So now we need to look at, we've got our criteria. We need to evaluate our criteria against our alternatives, or vice versa, look at alternatives and evaluate them against the criteria. So the first is, let's have a look at river rafting. Value for money. Now, I've decided to use a 3-point scale. So if it's very good, in other words, if it meets the criteria, it will be a 3. If it doesn't meet the criteria, it will be a 1 or a 0, and 2 would be in between. So in this case, river rafting, value for money, it is quite expensive, but you know what? It will be good fun, and the kids will enjoy it and they'll get a lot out of it. So I'm going to give it a 2. Guest house in Karoo, value for money. The guest house that you're looking at hiring is quite expensive. So although it's quite nice, it is quite expensive. So value for money, your river rafting is higher than the guest house in Karoo. Then let's look at relaxation. River rafting, yeah, it's relaxing, but you've still got quite a lot to do. You've got to row and paddle every day. You've got to organize the kids. You've got to get there. There's quite a lot of organization. So yes, although it's relaxing, you're going to give it a 2. It's not up there as the best. Whereas the guest house in Karoo, even though it's expensive, you do not have to take anything with you. You can arrive and everything is laid on for you. So that gets a 3. Then we look at distance. Now, you're based in Cape Town, so to get to the Orange River, it is quite far. You're going to be driving probably a day. It's about 800-900 kilometers to get there. So distance, you're going to give it a 1. Whereas the guest house in Karoo it's much quicker. So you're going to give that a 3. The roads are also better to get there. So that's why that gets a 3 and the river rafting gets a 1. And then, of course, kid-friendly. Well, river rafting, the kids are going to love it. You know they're going to love it. You know they like being outdoors. They like having fun. You know they're going to be no electronics because you're sitting on the water. So you're very kid-friendly, definitely river rafting. And the guest house in the Karoo, there is so much going on at the farm that your kids are going to be entertained all the time. So both of those get a 3. So now you've looked at the criteria and you've given each of the alternative scores. So now the easiest way is to actually add these up. So if you have a look at river rafting, the total there is 8, whereas the guest house in the Karoo, the total is 10. So now, of course, this might not be the only way you make your decision, and you might not have written it all down like this, but this is what plays up in your mind whenever you've got to make a decision. So this is really the format that you're going to use and the process and the model that you use for making decisions. So you can maybe see, or hopefully see from here, this is how we get the format of a rubric. It's a very, very similar process. And when you're going through the development of the process, I want you to bear in mind this simple decision that you had to make. Because again, like I said, it's the same process.